need to make sure that you're hearing me. Okay, now I'm unmuted, so great. Okay, I thought I had unmuted everything, Patty. So, and again, good morning. This is Carolyn Wheeler, and like Patricia Wilkerson, Stacy Henderson, and Trina Jenkins, I also work at the Human Development Institute, and I just work on a different project. So one of the projects that I work on is the Kentucky Supported Employment Training Project, and that actually, folks who are involved with supported employment do the same kind of work that employment specialists do within the school systems, except that they're doing that work with adults who are no longer in the school system. And so part of my work with that project is actually to do training on the impact of work on Social Security disability benefits. And from my perspective of not only training, but also meeting individually with individuals who receive benefits who want to go to work, I can tell you that a paycheck is better than a government check. And actually, they're not, probably what I should say is that they're not mutually exclusive. So what I really hope to do today is to give you some information as well as resources. And as Patty said earlier, if you have not downloaded the information off the link that's on this flyer, I'm just really going to ask that you do so, because all of that information is great resources, not only for you, for your students, but also for your students' parents. And I would really hope that it would go home with them as a resource, because again, I also do some training for employment specialists with folks with the Community Work Transition Program. And frankly, it really breaks my heart when I have an employment specialist come up to me after the training and say, I got this student a great job, but when they left school, because something happened to their SSI payment, their parents made them quit the job. So that to me is really tragic. And I think it's a function, again, of not understanding that really, yep, something will happen to the SSI payment. It will get lower, but your bank account will get bigger. So that's what, at the end of this hour, I sure hope you can see that relationship. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to share, if I can find all of my things. So that's always my challenge with this. So I'm going to actually, let's see. What I'm hoping to do is to share my website. So I think what I'll do is stop share, go to a new share, and see if I can find it. So what I'd like you to do is actually, all of you are obviously on the internet, so you can minimize your window with the Zoom meeting. And if you would go to YouTube and you would actually then type in employment files so that you would be able to see this page. And then Patty's going to copy and paste the link to the video that I want you all to watch. It's this one right here where it says, yes, you can, a message from the employment file, section 511 of WIOA. So I'm going to click on it, but I want you all to look at it individually at your locations, because it will stream better and you will be able to hear it. And you can also put on closed captions if that would be helpful. So Patty has put the link right there. I think you might also be able to click on that from the chat box, but if you all would do that, and then if I'm going to kind of look at my clock, it's 10:34. I'm going to come back on in 11 minutes. So that would give you 10 minutes to watch the video. So I'm going to mute myself, Patty. Well, this is Carolyn Wheeler again, and I'm going to hope that you're done watching the video. Again, if you're not, I guess if you could go ahead and stop it, we're going to go ahead and move through the rest of the information for today, but then you know where to find it and you could come back to it. And I'm also going to show you where you can find some other videos on that website that might be helpful to you. So what I'd like you to do now is to make sure that each of the students that are currently watching this with you have a copy of this My Life Course Employment Profile. So I'm going to give you perhaps everybody can find that, because you may have a stack of paper in front of you, but if everyone can find this, again, your copy may be in black and white, not in color, but the actual one that I'm showing is in color. And I'd like you to first write your name right here in this blank. So you would write your first and your last name where it says, so mine would be Carolyn, Carolyn's one-page profile. And then what people like and admire about you. I'd like you to write some things down about yourself that, again, you're proud about. This isn't, in my mind, bragging. I don't know how I made that line, actually. There, it's gone. but just some things that people like and admire about you. And could be you all can talk in your classroom if you need some assistance with writing those things down, or if you're an artist or you like to draw pictures, maybe some of the things that people like and admire about you have to do with your artistic ability, or maybe they like that you're friendly, you're helpful, you're easy to be with, you're good-natured, you're reliable, you're dependable, you do what you say you're going to do, you're a hard worker. So I would like each of you to at least see if you can't get, let's say, at least four really positive things about yourself in that block. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. And if you're done with that and you want to do the next box, what's important to me, you can start. We're not going to take the time, though, during this webinar to do this entire portfolio, but I really hope that you will take the time to do it, because it's not very long and could really help you think about your future. So what I would like you to do, though, is to turn it over, or if you have two separate pages, to go to the other side or to the next page and look at where it says at the top, Vision for a Good Life. And you've got a box that says, list what your overall good life would look like, what you want. So list what you want your overall good life to look like. Now, I want you to be thinking about your good life after you leave high school. You won't be in high school forever. And so I want you to think about that. Like, where do you think you'll be living, and what will you be doing during the day? And what are some activities perhaps that you hope to continue to be involved with? So again, you can draw some pictures, you can make some lists. If you need help writing, I hope there's someone there that can help you to do that, or you can talk about those things. And so again, if you all just want to talk about them together, and then after the webinar at another point, you all could write them down, that would be great. But I just want you to be thinking ahead, looking into the future. So I'm going to give you a minute to do that. couple of minutes, and then also about what you want your good life for your employment to look like. What kind of ideas you would have about work that you would be doing either now or after you graduate. So again, I'm going to give you all 10:46. We're going to do this until 10:50. You have 4 minutes to talk about and hopefully get some things down on your employment profile. To make sure everybody has enough time to at least do those two things, and what people like and admire about you, and then your vision for a good life and what your vision would be for employment life. So how about we just extend that time until 11 o'clock. And if you're done with those two activities, then you could move down to the bottom of the page and list what you don't want. So that's another 11 minutes to at least get those two activities done. And then if you've gotten them done, work on this part of this page that says what I don't want. Well, we will go ahead and move on. I've had some people say I'm going too fast. So I'd actually just said, you know, you could continue to work on the rest of the sheet if you were done with those two activities, because some folks wanted more time. So I tell you what, I'll just meet you in the middle and we'll just move on. But again, you could have done other sections on the sheet if you were done with those two. So I do want to go back to the front. If you haven't looked at this, if you can turn your sheet back over, we're not going to complete this now, but this star would be a place to put your employment goal. And then you can list your strengths and assets here that could help you achieve your goal. You could list people in your life that could help you achieve and reach your goal. You could look over here about, well, what kind of technology might help you to achieve your goal? I know for me, my smartphone actually is really helpful in terms of my being able to manage my calendar, and really is very helpful to me in my job. What are places in my community, other community assets, maybe there are resources that you could think about that could help you achieve your goal depending on where you want to work. What kind of connections do you have there? And then this last one would be eligibility support. So you all are all obviously still in school. You also hopefully are able to become involved with the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. Some of you may have supports through the Michelle P. waiver. So as part of your transition planning, it would be really important that everybody knows who all is involved with your life, either paid or unpaid, that could help make employment a reality. So I'm going to move on. And again, all the things that I'm showing this morning are all in the Dropbox. And so if your teacher or employment specialist hasn't had the time to download them and give them to you, I sure hope they will. This one I'm given really more for the benefit of the adults in your life. In other words, either your family members or your teachers or employment specialists, just to show that there are really two types of Social Security disability benefits. People tend to just refer to and say, I get Social Security. Well, what kind? Because if you don't know what it is that you receive, then you can't have any, people can't give you intelligent answers on what would happen to that benefit when you go to work. So I've actually updated this to show amounts for 2018 and 2019. Now, my assumption is that if you are currently receiving some kind of a cash payment each month or quote a check, most likely it is an SSI or supplemental security income payment. And while that does come from Social Security, it is not Social Security. It actually comes out of the federal treasury. It's actually a form of welfare that doesn't in any way devalue anyone who receives it. But no one has made but you haven't made a contribution for that benefit, and neither have your parents. You're not getting a benefit off of anyone's work record. So the most that anyone would be receiving in 2018 is $750 a month. Social Security usually at the end of October. This year, it was the middle of October, announced a cost of living adjustment. And so that benefit actually will increase to $771 per month in 2019. And that is assuming that the person is paying their fair share of living expenses. SSI is really intended for food and shelter. And so if you're receiving that benefit, I'm assuming that you're paying your parents something, or whoever it is you're living with, that you're paying them something to help cover the cost of your expenses for living there. So that's food, their utilities that are involved, and then the rest of that money is available, say, for clothes and other personal needs. And so that benefit does come with Medicaid. And all I would like, again, the adults in your life to understand is that earned income, money that you get from work, is treated differently than it would be if you're receiving some kind of a benefit, probably off of a parent's work record. Now, I'm going to assume that that's pretty unlikely, because I'm going to make the assumption, how about that most of you, if you're receiving a benefit, you're receiving SSI. However, if you know I'm getting some kind of a benefit off of a parent's work record, that's either because your parent is receiving what's called a Social Security disability insurance payment because they worked at one time and they are now disabled. And so they're getting some kind of a monthly payment as a disabled worker. And then you're getting, if you're over the age of 18, you're getting some kind of a benefit off of that record as well. If you're under the age of 18, or if you're over the age of 18, you've qualified as a disabled adult child. So it's just, the point that I'm trying to make is that you need to know, and so does your employment specialist, if you're getting some kind of a quote check, what kind of a check are you getting? Because that's the only way then you can know what will happen to your benefits and your bank account if you go to work. Now, there are people here in Kentucky who can really help you understand what would happen to your benefit when you go to work. And so these, again, are on the Dropbox. So there are 2 programs here in Kentucky that offer free counseling and assistance to people who are on Social Security disability benefits, either SSI or SSDI, to know what would happen to that benefit if they go to work. So one is provided by Goodwill here in Lexington. So I'm going to skip to the second page just so. I think most of you are actually in Western Kentucky, but I'm going to show these counties anyway. So if you live in one of these counties, so if you can check that out and see if where you live is on that list, then this is the service provider for you. So I'm going to probably switch over to the other one because I think most of you, at least looking at the list that Patricia sent me, are in Western Kentucky. But just know if you're more in Fayette or Eastern Kentucky, that would be this would be your WIPA provider. So WIPA stands for Work Incentives Planning and Assistance. Here's Laurel County right there. So again, you can find all this in the Dropbox. It's not a secret. So I want you to know that that's where all of this, you can get this information. So they provide WIPA services for half of the state. Transition students are a priority. However, because they provide services for people across half of the state, they're not going to meet with you, most likely. Now, the Center for Accessible Living, I'm going to scroll down, and they serve all of these counties in Kentucky. So I know we have people here from Adair County, from Hopkinsville, from Henderson, from Campbell County. Well, actually, it's Campbell. If it's Campbellsville, it's probably the other one. In any event, I'm going to let you look here. I'm going to make that a little bigger and make sure you can find your county. So if you're in Monticello, Wayne County is actually through the Center for Accessible Living that's in Louisville. One would assume it would be through Goodwill that's in Lexington, but it's not. So again, this is a free service. And as this says, are you thinking of returning to work or have already started working? Are you unsure or even afraid of how working will impact your state or federal benefits, or unsure of what you need to be doing? And so we can help. So it tells you right in the middle what they do. So there are people who are trained, and actually I have the same training as these folks. I just don't work for one of these kinds of programs. And so they really can provide individualized and personal benefits analysis and help you know about work incentives and understand how working will impact your benefits, and can provide ongoing assistance, and as well as about Social Security benefits, but also about if you happen to receive what are called SNAP benefits, which also are known as food stamps, and can provide you information about other resources that could be helpful to you. Now, here is their 800 number that you can call. Now, again, remember, they're not going to meet with you personally, like they're not going to drive to Columbia, or they're not going to drive to where you live, but all of this will be done by phone. So that's why I would suggest that whoever it is that helps you manage your money also be in on that call, and if your employment specialist can be in on that call, so that the people who are going to support you around working all hear the same thing. And so that would be my recommendation, so that again, this information can be the most helpful to you. So I guess I'll scroll back up to make sure, whoops, you can see the 800 number. So again, the Center for Accessible Living, if you're in primarily Jefferson County or West, I'll put the counties back up, or Goodwill if you're in Lexington or East, except for Wayne County. And transition age students are a priority for these particular services, but they really are looking to talk with people who are seriously considering going to work. So one of the other items in the Dropbox is a booklet that you really need to read or have somebody help you read. Your parents need to read, your employment specialists need to read if you currently receive that SSI benefit. So this is a book written by Social Security about what you need to know about your SSI when you turn 18. Now, I have no idea what age you are, but I'm going to assume that, I guess I'm assuming that all the students in this webinar are you're a teenager. So if you're under the age of 18 and you're receiving an SSI payment, this applies to you. If you are under the age of 18 and you're not, then this doesn't. At age 18, your family or the adults in your life with whom you live may decide to apply for this benefit, because then their income will no longer count. So to me, understanding though, what would happen is important. So this says, this booklet is for youth who receive supplemental security income, or SSI, and their parents, teachers, health providers, caregivers, or representatives. It will help you prepare for the transition from school to adult life. Many services and types of supports are available as you prepare to transition to higher education and employment. What you need to know is if you currently receive that SSI payment, and by the way, nobody actually gets a check. Social Security doesn't mail checks to anyone, and they haven't for a number of years. So either the SSI benefit is either landing in a bank account on the first of the month, or there's a debit type card that gets loaded with that money at the first of the month. So what Social Security says, and actually they send out letters about this, is that when you turn 18, so this again is if you're getting SSI now and you're not yet 18, Social Security will review your eligibility for continued SSI benefits based on disability rules for adults, including non-medical eligibility rules. So your determination until you're 18 was based on their disability rules for children. But at age 18, you are legally an adult. So the pamphlet says, we will generally contact you within a year of turning age 18. We call this review the age 18 redetermination. So the booklet goes on to talk about what kind of information they will need. What I'd like to now read to you, and for you to make sure you understand, it says doctors and other trained staff, so I'm in this first paragraph up here, will decide if you meet the disability rules for adults. Our disability rules for adults are different from our disability rules for children. Historically, about 1/3 of children lose their SSI eligibility following the age 18 redetermination. So what that means is that if you've been receiving an SSI payment and you are under the age of 18, you don't have a guarantee that that payment will continue after you turn age 18 unless you meet the disability rules for adults. And that may happen and it may not. I personally know of young adults for whom they received SSI as a child but didn't continue to qualify as an adult. And so it's just really important to understand that. Now, I hope you'll, again, the adults in your life and those that work with you will take the time to read this entire booklet. I'm just going to talk about a couple of work incentives that this booklet talks about that would be important to know about. So if at age 18, Social Security finds that you are no longer medically eligible after the age 18 redetermination, then your SSI payments usually stop. However, so this is a really good reason to stay in school, to continue to work with vocational rehabilitation, to get a job, because it says, however, if you are participating in an approved program of special education, vocational rehabilitation, which certainly would include the community work transition program, or similar services, your benefits may continue until you stop participating in the program because of the SSI continued payments rule. And so then it goes on to talk about what you must be doing in order to qualify for that SSI payment to continue beyond the age of 18 if it was determined you really are no longer eligible. And it gives examples, and I'm on page 6 of appropriate programs, which would include, again, if you're still in school and you have an individualized education program, if you're working with a vocational rehabilitation counselor and you have an individualized plan for employment, or if you have a written service plan under what's called Section 504, and then something called an approved plan to achieve self-support, or a PASS, which is talked more about in this book. Now, the next very, very, very powerful reason for you to work while you're in school, and if you're receiving SSI, is that actually there's an incredible work incentive from Social Security that really would allow you to maintain your full SSI benefit and also all of your earnings while you're still in school. So again, this is from Social Security. And I would hope that your employment specialists know about this and maybe have even talked with you or your parents about this. It's called the Student Earned Income Exclusion. And so this allows youth under age 22 who are regularly attending school to have some of their earnings excluded from their income, and therefore essentially what happens is that it doesn't impact your eligibility for SSI or what your SSI payment would be. So also in the Dropbox, I have put a fact sheet that we have on our Support Employment Training Project's website that gives you, and again, the adults in your life who help support you, more information about this. So it gives a definition of what regularly attending school means, and then also what the amount of money it is that you could earn and not have any reduction in your SSI payment. So for 2018, you could earn up to $1,820 a month. That's a lot of money. And given you're going to school, I'm going to probably assume you wouldn't be earning that much, but that's a lot of money. You'd have to have one incredible job, or maybe you've got an amazing lawn care business in the summer, but you could earn up to that much money per month and there'd be no reduction in your SSI payment, up to a yearly amount of $7,350. And then that resets every January. And actually that amount's going to go up for 2019. So essentially this then describes how it works. It also, we have listed on the other side of on this fact sheet, again, those WIPA provide those work incentives planning assistance services, the Center for Accessible Living in Louisville and Goodwill Industries, who again could explain it again to your family members, or if employment specialist, if you have any other questions, you can, again, that's their phone numbers that I talked about previously. So now what I'd like to show you though is that you won't be in school forever, right? You're going to at some point graduate and be an adult and hopefully be responsible. And one of the things that we know from information that we collect from another project here at the Human Development Institute is that students who work while they're in high school, when we talk with them a year out, when we collect information from students who've been out of school for a year, who've worked while they're in school, do you think they're doing better than students who don't work during high school? So why don't you all just chat about that in your room for a minute? Is it better to have a job during high school? Was it better, or do you think you do better if you don't work while you're in high school and then wait until you get out of high school to try to get a job? And teachers and employment specialists, I would love for you all to share with students whether or not you worked when you were in high school. I'll just say, I sure did. So just talk about that for a minute. Is it a good idea to work and get that experience while you're in high school, not in addition to the money? So I have put 2 of these documents into the Dropbox. So if you downloaded the material before yesterday, you only have this one. I've also, and I'm going to show you in a minute, the one for 2019. So you may need, again, some time for somebody to work with this through you. So work with, in other words, for you to understand this. But this is really a good handout to give family members, because it really does show that, again, the more SSI you have, the less money you have in the bank. So you decide. you want more of an SSI payment, or do you want more money in the bank? And this sheet proves it. So Social Security has a formula for once you're no longer a student, how money that you earn from a job will affect your SSI payment. So it doesn't affect it dollar for dollar. So for example, if you earned $240 a month, your SSI payment is reduced by $77.50. So your new SSI payment will be $672.50, but instead of $750 or $750 in the bank, you would have $912.50. So again, your SSI payment is less, but you have more money in the bank. Now, so Social Security requires, by the way, that you report your earnings. They're not going to know. And especially if you're working while you're in school, if you report your earnings and you don't tell them you're a student, they won't apply that income exclusion, that student earned income exclusion that I just talked about. So it's a requirement that you report your earnings every month, and it's your gross earnings. So yes, if you earn $240, there's going to be some money withheld for taxes and also for money that goes into your own Social Security account. However, when you file a tax return next year, most likely you get all of that money or the majority of that money back. So, and also some of that money is going into your Social Security account so that when you get, hopefully, to retirement age, you have some additional money that you could receive as a retiree. So let's just go down a little bit further. If you had a job making $480 a month, yes, your SSI payment is reduced. And again, I'm going to hope maybe your teacher or employment specialist can be showing you how this is working, that you've got this sheet either in front of you or you're looking at the screen. So now your SSI payment is $552.50. But look, you've got over $1,000. You have over $1,000 in the bank account. So someone's asked me to repeat the exclusion part regarding students who are employed. So yes, I will do that in just a minute. But so thank you. Thank you for asking, and I'll show you that again. Again, just know all of that's in the Dropbox. So what I want you to understand here, though, is that what happens is that once you're not a student, though, this is what happens. And so employment specialists, this is what you've got to also share with families. Because once they see that SSI payment reduced, they often tell their son or daughter to quit the job. Well, do you see why that's really foolish? Do you see why if you work, you're going to have more money? If you don't work, the most you would have in 2018 is $750 a month. If you even have a part-time job making $240, you have more money. So what I want, and then I will go back to the student earned income exclusion. So what I'd like for the folks there in the room to understand, at least the teachers and the employment specialist, and for you, is that the lower your SSI payment is, the less the SSI payment is, the more money you have because of work. So in this last column, you see that. If you earned $1,200 a month, your SSI payment is $192.50, but look, you've got almost $1,400. So you decide, more SSI or more money in the bank. And actually this shows that you really could have your SSI payment and still continue to work. So SSI is really very, very work friendly. So I'm going to go back to the student earned income exclusion. I'm going to show the sheet, this one right here. Again, this is in the Dropbox. And it's also in the book by Social Security about what you need to know about your SSI. And again, so in other words, if a student earned, if we go back to this sheet, I go back to the adjustment sheet, the student earned $240 a month while they're a student, they still get their SSI amount will still be $750 until they're no longer a student. And then their SSI payment would be reduced by $77.50. But you do have to make sure that people know about this. Now, no, this is, as I said earlier, this is gross income. Social Security is always interested in gross income, not net income. So it's, and again, take-home pay is, they're not going to have a huge reduction in that amount, but Social Security always wants to know about gross income. So one of the other books that's on the website that I would really ask that you also read, and this is really more for the teachers and the employment specialists, you read this and you send it home with your students. Because again, it's written by Social Security and it really tells you what happens. So again, I'm going to assume most of your students are not on SSDI, but that's the first part. But here it is about SSI. And the one thing, on page 13, it tells you what that formula is that we use to get those payments there on that grid. And then page 14, circle it. It is the person, either the student, it's your responsibility, or if someone is managing the money for you, and they're called a representative payee. I'm a representative payee for a woman who turned 66 this month, and she has, with an intellectual disability, and she's worked at least since she was 30. And let me tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, she now receives, and actually I've got a letter from Social Security, she's going to get her retirement benefit. So she worked her way off of SSI. She started receiving a benefit off of her work record, and it is more than twice $750 a month. So if she'd never worked, she'd be getting $750 a month. Instead, she gets over twice that because she's worked. And so she received a benefit off of her work record. Now that's being transitioned to a retirement benefit. So working helps you not only now, but it helps you for your future. And so it's really, really important that students know you have to report what you earn to Social Security, and then you're going to get letters from them and pay attention to what they say. But I want to show you what it says on page 15 of this book about Medicaid. People worry they're going to go to work and lose their Medicaid if they're on SSI. Well, that is just fiction. That is so false. So again, this is a book by Social Security, and it says how long your Medicaid will continue. It says in general, if your work income causes your SSI to stop. Well, we just saw where if you earn $1,200 a month, you'd still have $192.50 in SSI. Well, I can tell you what that amount would be for 2018. It's 2 times $750. That's $1,500, and you add 85. So if you earned, after you're no longer a student, $1,585 a month, then your SSI payment would be 0, but you could still continue to be eligible for Medicaid. So it just says, your Medicaid coverage will continue even after your SSI payments stop until your income reaches a certain level. Now that level for 2018, and I think I did not put this in the Dropbox, mainly because 2019, all this will change. So here's the amount right here. If your only income is from SSI in your job, when your paycheck reaches $1,585 per month, you'll no longer get an SSI cash payment, but that's twice $750 plus $85. But you will still receive Medicaid until your income reaches Kentucky's threshold amount. And so for this year, that's over $30,000. So just think about it. You don't need to limit your earnings. You could still be eligible for Medicaid. Again, as long as you use the Medicaid and as long as you don't go over the resource limit of $2,000. So what I'd like to end with, and again, I'll be willing to go past the hour to make sure I answer questions for folks, but every single one of you, and I would really encourage folks for you to do this as a pre-ed activity as well. What happens if you do not report your working per month? Well, you're committing fraud. So I'll just say that, Heather. Person's committing fraud. And at some point, the IRS talks to Social Security and they'll find out, and the person will be in an amazing place of back payment. So it's kind of like not filing your tax return. What happens if you don't file a tax return? Does it eventually catch up with you? Probably. So that's why, in my opinion, you all really need to help educate family members about this. Social Security, I don't know what all could happen. I don't know if they'd actually stop the benefit. I can't tell you. I just know that how about, it's kind of like the IRS, you need to report it. The book is, but that's what they'll end up in overpayment. And then then they really end up quitting the job because they don't understand. And so it's just really, really important to report every single month. And actually, I haven't opened it, but in the Dropbox, people can report using their smartphone. So I want to talk about stable accounts. And so there's always been, the limitation that you couldn't have more than $2,000 and keep your SSI eligibility and Medicaid, and now you can. So this is in the drop box, and now I'm going to take you to the website, I think. As soon as I'm sorry, I didn't have that open. So this is the website. So I would encourage you to use this as a pre-ETS activity and spend some time on the website. So I've actually opened a stable account for the woman for whom I'm a representative payee, the woman that gets over twice $750 a month, and she receives the Michelle P. waiver, and so I have to manage her resources, and so she's got too much money in the bank, so I opened a stable account and put money in it. So family members, your students could contribute up to $15,000 a year, but you need to track through all of these sections. Now, in order to be eligible, and I'm going to assume that all of you are, that your disability occurred before the age of 26. I think you wouldn't be in this webinar this morning. And you don't have to be receiving SSI or SSDI to qualify, but you do have, the disability has to have occurred before the age of 26. But then you need to know that money in a stable account needs to be used on what are called qualified disability expenses, but that includes basic living. I think you can see the pictures: housing, transportation, education, assistive technology, employment training, personal support services, health and wellness. You could join a Y, financial management. So it would be really important to read this section, because if money from a stable account were spent on something that's not, there are, again, some bad consequences. And I'm not going to spend time. I think I have 2 minutes. I want to see if there are any more questions. And I'm certainly willing to stay longer than the hour if you do. But really would encourage you all to spend time on this website and learn about stable accounts. It takes $50 to open an account, and you don't go to a bank, you go to the website. And I think you can see here at the top, open an account. Now, to open an account, you need an email address and you need a bank account. So those are the two things that would be needed. Someone would have to help you establish what's called a username and a password. So just know those are, and $50 a month. Now, there is a $3.50 per month charge, so you wouldn't want to just put money in and $50 in and never put any more in, because your $50 would be gone in about a year. So just know that there are other resources. I clicked on the resource link. There's actually a presentation. There's a fact sheet and more information about it. And at the bottom of the home page, you can also find an 800 number or an email address. So it's 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central. I do want to also show you, though, one more website. I want to end with this one, which is the Kentucky Works website. So really would encourage you all, again, kentuckyworks.org. This is designed specifically for transition age students. You can get to our employment files from here. We have other resources for families, for people with disabilities, for employers. There's modules and learning tools, some other posts. So I would encourage you to go to that website and see what other resources might be there to assist you on your journey to being as contributing and productive and capable adult as you can be once you graduate from high school. So are there any other questions? Well, I guess not. Well, great. Thank you. So I'm going to put my email address here. You're welcome to email me with questions. Well, if I can make it go to everyone. Here we go. Again, I can't answer any questions if I don't know what kind of benefit for sure the student is receiving. And I don't know if it was recorded or not, Karen. I don't think we did record it because okay, Patty says it was recorded. I will tell you, though, that Again, things will change in 2019. The basic concepts don't. Actually, I did put the fact sheet from Social Security with the COLA increases. This is why I know that SSI, it's right here, becomes $771 a month. And then I have also put into the Dropbox that adjustment sheet starting in 2019. So again, you can just see, I think I changed the 240 to 320 because I just thought that sounded better. But you can see, yes, there's a reduction in SSI payment. If you can just help people understand, the lower the SSI payment is, the more money you have. So, well, thank you all for your time, and hope you have a great rest of the day. And thanks, Patty. Yes, sign up for the Kentucky Works newsletter. And there are other learning modules. And all the best to you, young adults, in your future pursuits.